The Public Protector has released a scathing report on investigations into Thabo Bester's escape from Mangaung Correctional Facility. The report states that there was an undue delay by Correctional Services in the investigation of the escape. For some reaction, we're now joined by Lesiba Thobakgale, who is the national spokesperson for Sapu. Lesiba, appreciate your time today. Now, how do you view the Public Protector's findings on the delays in reporting Thabo Bester's escape?
Thank you, Hugo, for having us, and greetings to your viewers. Indeed, it is worrying in terms of the findings that appears clearly in that report, more especially when it comes to the part where the controller of Mangaung prison under G4S had a responsibility clearly to make sure that whatever incident that has occurred, and specifically this incident of Thabo Bester, is indeed reported immediately when something has happened. So the delay there of that has really caused a lot of things. Indeed, it is indeed worrying. And for the fact that the issue of Thabo Bester took such a long time, and there were inactions, more especially when it comes to the side of the controller, it's indeed worrying, because we really think as an organization that if indeed the matter was reported at the very same time, the investigations would have indeed taken place, and maybe what we have seen as an outcome where they got to be rearrested at a later stage and even out of this country, that wouldn't have happened. So clearly the inaction thereof in terms of the Public Protector's report, it is indeed worrying to ourselves. And we have a clear position as an organization to say that the controller, or even DCS itself, it has to take full control of all the private prisons that are there in South Africa, not for them to be contracted, because that on its own, the institution itself, it has a controller who is from DCS, and he's the one who reports to DCS in terms of what is happening within that private prison. And if then that controller does not report, then it is clear even in the report that the National Commissioner of DCS only came to be aware at a later stage when there were issues that were being raised already, meaning that there was no synergy in terms of communication or in terms of reporting, reporting to the SAPs or even reporting to the DCS National Commissioner. So DCS has to take full custody to make sure that all the private prisons, they are indeed in the hands of DCS, as they have the capability and they can even absorb the workers that are there under those private prisons, being it Kudumas in Tumule in Limpopo and also Mangaung under G4S.
Now, Lesiba, I'd like to know Sapu's thoughts on the final warnings issued to the two implicated officials. And is this sufficient disciplinary action? And I think what's important to consider, some of the stuff that you've already indicated, is that there's a huge cost element to all of this. The issues around integrity, right? Reporting the case 6 months after they discovered it, I think that's about the time. And the fact that a plane had to be chartered, right, to Tanzania to pick up the suspects are all huge costs. And these two individuals, who I suppose can be implicated and by extension, if you will, had the report been made earlier, walk away with a wrapping on the knuckles.
Yeah, you know, this issue of the escaping of Thabo Bester, it is an embarrassment actually to the safety and security sector. Indeed, and when you are looking at the costs that you just mentioned, that indeed government had to spend to make sure that they are chartered back into the country, those are high costs. And when we are looking at the issue of discipline, it is a line management function where management have a responsibility to make sure that they take actions that relates to discipline. For now, we don't want to comment further, more especially about what has happened in terms of the discipline, because we are not quite privy as an organization to say what were the contents, what were the charges that were there, and how did that disciplinary case go. But as a matter of principle, where anyone failed to perform their duty appropriately, they have to face consequences, because consequence management, it is what is applicable within the public service, where one has to face specific charges that has to come by.
Now, in your opinion, how much of the blame for Bester's escape should fall on G4S, given that they were managing the prison?
Remember, G4S, they were the very main culprits, so to use that word, who indeed were responsible. They had custody of Thabo Bester for the longest time. And indeed, for one to escape, it goes with planning. And this one, it is clear that it was orchestrated. They were aiding and abiding. There were people who aided and even abided with him to assist him to escape and so on. So G4S, they are carrying the full responsibility in our view. They must carry a full responsibility and to account in terms of that, because it is them who had Bester 24/7 under their custody, and anyone who was in contact with him, anything that he was doing whilst he was under the custody of G4S, so it really falls on top of their head. Then they should account at the end of the day, because the millions of rands that gets to be paid by the DCS to the services that they are doing, then we have to see value for money. But if something like this that can happen, that really brought an embarrassment to the country itself, that indeed has shamed, us, because it was the police at the end of the day who had now to go do investigations to trace him back, and also to even to bring him back into the country, where this very same convicted somebody had left the country illegally. So the implications thereof are quite a lot. It cannot just be something that can be overlooked. G4S, our view is that it must take responsibility largely in terms of what has happened.
And before we let you go, what additional security measures or reforms do you think should be put in place to prevent future prison escapes, particularly of this magnitude?
Remember, in our prisons, there is a whole lot of technology advancement that is coming into play. So that indeed, it really has to be strengthened, where the issues of the fourth industrial revolution resources are being utilized, more especially in terms of the logs, in terms of civilians, and anything that has to do with the integrity of whoever comes in and whoever goes out, in terms of even looking at the issues of contrabands and so on, and also to make sure that the issue of integrity, it is indeed being instilled within our prisons. But a greatest measure is to make sure that DCS takes away this responsibility. They terminate the contracts of the private prisons and they take full responsibility, so that tomorrow, if something can happen, they can fully take responsibility, because everything that will be happening under their watch. They will be happening clearly under the responsibility of the National Commissioner of DCS, who would then account, not him having to rely on information, not him having to rely on reports that are given by that private company that is running the private prisons.
Lesiba Thobakgale, national spokesperson for Sapu, giving us his reaction to that report around Thabo Bester's escape, and suggesting that technology should be activated to prevent future incidents of a similar nature from happening.